Oh my God.
It's like the water bottle.
I feel like someone called 911. My heart is racing. Okay. And we're live. With that, thank you. Welcome, everyone, to Tuesday, April 28th. And what you all missed before we started this meeting is that our microphones are working. Thank you so much, Tracy, for starting the meeting. We are going to start with roll call, and I see Councilmember Agabi drinking coffee and not sharing with us. Yeah, okay. Hello, Peter. Hello, Angela, Megan, Kelly, Eileen, Brandon. Joan Cappy, I assume, is going to be joining us because we have not heard otherwise. So,
Although she may have reached out to Brittany.
I don't like that. I don't like it, and it's okay. We still have a quorum. So for our guests, our work sessions are more informal. We use first names, and we like to have discussions. So please feel comfortable. I'm in a regular old discussion with us. And you are both on for our item number 3, and we thank you both for being here. So our legislative session review. Do you know everyone in this room? You two? Should we go around everyone? Yeah. B3, would you like to start?
Brandon Hicks, Transportation and Engineering Director for the city, also known as B3.
Brad Metter, Community Development Director.
Angela Jefferson, Council Member, position number 2.
Megan Sullivan, she, her, position 5, Councilor.
Kelly Von Holt, position number 7, Mayor Pro Tem. I am the mayor as of January. Hi, nice to see you both.
Paul Simmons, City Administrator.
Brandon Whedon, Council, position 1. Or, no, I'm B1. You took B1 from me.
Yeah. Brandon.
Been here the longest out of all Brandon.
Kelly Adams, Assistant City Administrator. And can we check the microphones on the back? Let's not start with Tracy. Let's start with your line.
Troy Niemeyer. Troy Niemeyer, Finance Director. Carlos, who is acting police chief. Matt Denman, Information Technology Director, and these two.
Tracy Carr, Deputy City Clerk. Sorry for me.
We don't apologize. We are ready for this meeting. Okay, what are we talking about today? Oh, and Councilmember Kathy. Circling back with Councilmember Kathy, who's present. Okay, you two have the floor.
Oh, we do?
Take it from here.
Great.
Well, I'm Katie Whittier. I am your lead lobbyist here in Olympia. I'm assisted by the one and only Brian Enslow.
For having us, really appreciate your time.
We're here to give you a little recap on what happened at the other part of town earlier this year.
Okay, I have a question for you.
All right.
So are you consultants just for our city or for several cities?
A variety of things. Yeah, a variety of clients. Some are cities for me, some are cities, some are counties, some are other types of folks. Brian has a ton of expertise with cities, which is really helpful because city issues, I don't know if you've noticed, are somewhat complicated and have long histories. Would you introduce yourself a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question. My first job was after college was answering phones at the governor's office. And I've had an opportunity to work for a couple different governors, as well as being a budget writer for House. So it came up as STEP. Worked for the Counties Association for 7 years, and then after that, I went out on my own. I do represent a handful of municipalities, 5, and then I also have some work, do some work in like the crisis system and Medicaid system, as well as doing some like pro bono work for Working Families Tax Credit Coalition and things like that.
Okay, thank you. I just want some background information to give Taylor, because Katie's always here, so, but I didn't know.
Sure. Thank you. Happy to provide any additional information anytime.
All right,
I also like coffee, so.
Okay.
We both are local, so.
Okay,
Happy to meet with you anytime.
that's good to know. Thank you very much.
Or a year and a half ago, almost 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
This slide will look a little familiar if you were here last year for our preview. So I wanted to return to it and just remind you of where we started out. We can move from there. We did have big majorities in both Senate and the House, big Democratic majorities, which allowed certain things to move quicker and other things to slow a little bit, which we saw more of this session than we did in 25. There was a lot better alignment this year between the executive and legislative branches. Last year there was friction with the new governor and the legislators trying to get used to somebody new around. A lot more alignment this year, which did allow big items to move through. 60-day session, it's just a supplemental budget. There's not a lot of time to do a lot, and yet there's a lot of ambition because the last line here, it's an election year, everybody wants to be able to fulfill some promises of their own. So it was a lot of pressure for 60 days, and then we had the unexpected flood event in December. We already knew we were in kind of a deficit situation. It was going to be a tough year, and then there were emergencies on that needed to be dealt with during session. A lot of complications. How do we fare? 1,205 bills were introduced in this session alone. So 60 days is not a lot of time to consider a bunch of bills like that. Bills that didn't become law or didn't get X'd last year could technically pick up in the second year of the biennial budget. And so some did. So in total, there were 3,110 bills introduced over the course of the 2 years. 267 made it to the governor's desk this year. That was a mix of leftovers from last year that continued on and new bills that were introduced. Relatively small number, right? There's a lot of things that died of cutoffs this year. Nothing was vetoed except for there were a few small vetoes in the budget. Real minor unless it was your program that got vetoed, which it wasn't. Good. Fiscal context, you heard a lot about the deficits that we're facing. We will continue to face for a while. You know from a city perspective what the inflationary pressures are like. Obviously true for the state as well. And there's been a lot of new policy coming out of the legislature over the last several years, which were cost as well. We also had a big federal change with the one big beautiful bill that passed last summer. And so safety net programs, some of those where the federal funding went away, that put more pressure on the budget. We had some good news. The revenue forecast in February, that's the revenue forecast that the budget is built on. It came out better than expected, which was great because November forecast was pretty scary. So there was some good news. The Climate Commitment Act funds, the CCA, those auction revenue funds were higher than expected. It put a lot of pressure on that particular account, but it did offer some solutions in a tight budget year that we wouldn't otherwise. On top of that, there were challenges implementing some of the 2025 taxes, the new taxes, especially the sales tax. Real complicated, and it didn't go into effect until October 1st, so they didn't even get to iron out a lot of problems in time or see much benefit from it yet. It was challenging, and then you probably saw some news about the estate tax being, after last year's session, just really an outlier nationwide for how large it was. They knew they needed to address that as well going into session, and they did. Pause and let Brian fill in on anything I may have skimmed past.
No, I'll check in at the end of this slide.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
This is the big one, the takeaways from the session. You all heard about the millionaire's tax. This was a huge win for Democrats. It is a move toward having an income tax, in this case, income tax on high earners in the state. It doesn't come into effect, and it's not considered into the budget until 2028, 2029 timeframe. So they do anticipate legal challenges. We are already seeing those play out or starting to play out, potentially ballot initiative as well. That said, it was the thing of session, right? You heard it going into session, you saw it all throughout session, and it did pass. The governor did sign it. There's a lot to it. It started out, I would say, on kind of an optimistic note when it comes to local government funding. The first 5% of the tax, in the first proposal, first 5% of the tax would have gone towards public defense for counties. Great solution, right, across the board. But cities need some of that money too. AWC worked pretty hard to get included, and there was a proposal floating around at some point between 7 and 10% of the tax would go towards public defense, split between cities and counties. When it passed, all of that was gone, got stripped out entirely, and that's a huge hit because part of the tax relief that is included in the millionaire's tax, it hurts your bottom line, right? So suddenly cities and counties are also not getting the sales tax on diapers or the counter medications, deodorant, shampoo, those things. So it does hit your budget, and yet there's no relief for you for that sales tax hit, right? The state will get the income tax revenue. What do locals get? included in that final package, the final version of the tax that passed, is some language on the 4-year budget outlook that $200 million will be set aside starting next year or in the 4-year outlook next year. At some point, $200 million to provide relief to local governments, that's cities, counties, and transportation benefit districts. $200 million is not enough. For example, cities, I think they're looking at what? It's about $180 million to replace the lost sales tax. Counties is over $200 million on their own. Couldn't tell you what the transportation benefit district impact is. So $200 million is greater than zero, but not nearly enough. And it's just intent language. It is not written into anything. So this is a big fight in 27. We want to make sure that that's still on the table. We want to make sure that we can inch that up and get the relief that we need for local governments. All of this is dependent on the tax actually happening though, right? And so in some ways it's still theoretical. It did pass to survive to become real. Data centers and AI, yeah.
I understand it's hypothetical because there's lots that we don't know. If there would be set-asides, would that be a one-time set-aside, those numbers you were just speaking about?
Devil's in the details, right? That's what we have to hammer out. That needs to be ongoing because you're going to feel the impacts ongoing every single year. So it needs to be ongoing. How that tool will end up playing out has to be negotiated. The other big question implied in that is it $200 million flat or is it connected to inflation? Yeah. Because the tax will grow, right, over time, and therefore, is it a flat 200 million? So we have to go back and beg every time we want to see an increase, or can we?
So is that million unit tax the first in the nation?
To be that specific, probably not.
No, I mean, you know, and these are the only ways, I know you know this, but these are the only ways the words are going to come out, right? Other states have income tax, and they have differential rates. So conceptually, we're establishing an income tax in Washington similar to, it just so happens that our differential is no tax for anyone under $1 million in gross receipts, and then a 9.9 for tax above. So you also, perhaps you recall, but during the New York election, then New York City, one of the major kind of campaign issues.
Okay, thank you.
They're taxing home, second home in New York. So if you have a $16 million apartment, then you have another $5 million apartment, you're gonna get taxed on the extra.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, Katie alluded to this, you know, there will be two challenges. There will be legal challenge that will ultimately be heard by the state Supreme Court on whether our Constitution allows millionaires tax. And then, of course, the ballot challenge.
Okay.
Both of them, right, are, you know, anyone's guess as to whether the courts will uphold it and whether the voters will.
And how long it will take for that to play out.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 28 is recommend, but I've been wrong. So we shall see. Any other questions on that one? That's the big one.
Yeah.
So.
Councilmember, your question about like the 200 million one time or not is really, you know, the legislature is not allowed to bind future legislature, especially in a budget. In a budget, it's funny in Washington, we have a 2-year budget. We have this legal requirement to have like a document that says how we balance over 4 years. But the only thing that's actually legally that actual is the 2-year. So this whole notion that there's this mitigation fund 4 years in the future, you can only kind of speak to it, but you actually can't.
On it.
No, because it's not. I mean, they could, like, theoretically, they could have created an account. They could have put money in an account, money that they don't have, because they need their. And we'll talk about it more in the next slide. I'll mute my enthusiasm and let it. But
So it's very complicated. There's
Yeah.
a lot of moving pieces there, and we have to be vigilant on all of it. Data centers and AI turned out to be a very big topic this session. I expect that to continue and probably ramp up in these future sessions. There was a lot of talk within the last 24 hours of session that the data center bill was going to hold up session. We go into a special session over it. The logjam broke around 6 p.m. and we were able to adjourn on time, March 12th. So big issues in the tech sector. Obviously, a lot of talk about taxes generally. Highway and bridge maintenance was the big focus for the transportation budget. There was quite a bit of focus there on this, but it's all state level. It's all state level infrastructure. Very little for locals. Talk a little bit more about that. It's unfortunate, but it's state level infrastructure. We do want to see those investments. They do help our communities. We also need local infrastructure investments too. Interestingly, Washtenaw had been on a pay-as-you-go model, and I really wanted to stick to that. It's a recent move in the last several years. They had to go back to a bonding model to afford a lot of what they need to do, right? So we're back into more of a traditional bonding model for the infrastructure, and that is a change. There was no action that passed related to legal liability reform in the state. There was a proposal. There was, I think, a good step in the right direction, which would have helped with liability issues at city level as well, and the county level. It just didn't go very far. It would have promoted more arbitration as a solution instead of everything going to court. Hopefully it will have to pick up again next year, and hopefully with some other proposals as well. Also, paid family medical leave. That program is really close to its cap, and it needs some reform. It needs some change. I hoped to see a little bit of movement on that this year, so we didn't have to wait till next year for bigger conversations. There just wasn't any conversation, no appetite to touch it this year. It will be coming up in 2027. Challenging year for local governments overall. It was, there were a lot of battles to fight. There were a lot of, it's very clear to me that even for legislators who came from a city council background or a county commission background, that they're losing sight pretty quickly. And then there's plenty of legislators who have no experience in this, right? Of the careful partnership that needs to exist between states and local governments. So you all don't have the same tools that the state has to be able to fund your programs, and yet you have so much of the responsibility, and you are frontline when it comes to communities. So it's clear there needs to be a lot more education, gentle education with legislators to really bring them along in this sphere. Otherwise, these battles are just dragging our face in the mud. It is tough. All right, let's talk about the good news. No. Budget balancing was real tough this year with the deficit. There was a heavy reliance on one-time transfers from other accounts. The big one, almost $1 billion out of the budget stabilization account. That's our rainy day fund, the reserves that you hear about. We still have money there. It's just not much. A bunch of it came out this year to balance the budget. $395 million came from the capital gains tax that would otherwise have gone to the common schools account. That's concerning, a sort of defunding in schools. Balance the operating budget for the state. Big one for local governments, $375 million swept out of the public works assistance account. This comes on top of $288 million swept last year. So over $600 million out of that account. This account funds low interest loans and sometimes grants, depending on the circumstance, for local government infrastructure.
A lot has taken advantage.
Yes. Great for wastewater. It's such a program because it's self-sustaining with payments back on those loans. Makes it a very tempting pot to steal from, and it is routinely swept. Not usually every year. Yeah, and not once they started this level. Such a high.
That's a good point.
That was some of my questions of the historical context of like how much money is left in these accounts. One of them, you said that they brought it close to.
In this case, for public works assistance account, they backfilled that 320 of the 375 million. I'm not 100% sure on where the actual end number was. So they backfilled it, but they backfilled it with other bonds that are at a higher interest rate. They're still going to make good on the loans and continue to grant loans, essentially grants, but probably fewer of those, at the low interest rate. But that account will be set up at a loss for foreseeable for a little while because it is funded by state capital
General obligation bonds.
general construction bonds.
Oh, not true. It was, in the final budget, it was climate commitment. Yeah,
The details.
yeah.
Anyway, higher interest. So it sets the program up in a loss. The Public Works Board, they're the ones that make the decisions. They feel like this is probably the best solution for now, in part because it makes it a less tempting account to raid if there's not actual money in it. However, it is not a long-term solution. So, we'll see how that plays out.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So is this because of cuts in federal funding, the 1% sales cap?
Why do we have a deficit that we have? It's a huge, complicated question that I can only begin to scratch at, but part of it is we had a good amount of federal funding that came through during the pandemic. We had a lot of legislators that turned over between right before the pandemic and then who got really used to being able to have money for anything they wanted. And they grew services at a kind of an unprecedented rate. They want to keep those services. They seem fairly popular. They're expensive, and we're definitely not getting federal funds. I mean, there are federal cuts, and that is an impact, but it's also just less pandemic level, support funds that were kind of an emergency. But they got spent on more permanent programs. And part of it is overspending. Part of it is the economy is a little bit slower now. A lot of it is inflation. A lot of it is be able to keep pace for state employees on their benefits and their compensation packages. A lot of factors all at once. And it's an excellent question. You could get a PhD on it and still be learning.
Okay. The left $1, so they didn't get access to it. There was a proposal for the left $1. Is it billion or million? It's a billion. And then I heard that their proposal was to share it with the local governments to help offset costs for our charges that we have for our, to pay our medical fees or whatever. I'm not sure how.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they stopped short of that. But that's what they want to do. But you know that that's not what's going to happen. They'll probably end up sweeping it and using it for, like they do Public Works. But AWC was trying to fight to get the money to go to. Sorry.
You don't apologize, just we,
Yeah,
would like to
we're
do-
going down a dark path, but I was wanting, sorry to know, because they were trying to get the money for the local governments. That's what AWC's been fighting for. So, but
Yeah.
it doesn't happen with it.
No,
The dark days.
I know.
Yeah.
I believe that the Ormsby bill was 2024, I think it was, or 20.
Did they get it?
They did, yeah, and largely,
I don't think they covered that in the AWC wrap up.
so I think one of the things that we're concerned about as we talk about this one is it's 2-year budget. There's kind of the current expense, state uses general fund, it's about $80 billion. So it is a pretty significant base, but you start adding these things on top of each other. So they took $1 billion out of the capital budget. Public Works Assistance Account, they took a bunch of climate commitment and they funded it. So they used what traditionally was capital money and they funded operating dollars, ongoing expenses with one-time transfer, right? They took, so for level setting, the law enforcement and firefighter pension, left one, is a robustly funded pension system, a whole bunch of balance there. And then we have fewer and fewer members that are still alive and receiving benefits. Many of the eligible left one beneficiaries are like spouses at this point, like survivor. Not all. Cities at the time when this was created in the late 60s, 70s, thought it was great that the state was going to help kind of chip in and pay the pension benefit. And at the time, cities agreed that we would pay then the medical. So it's a pretty rich benefit. Now, flash forward where we are today, where we're on the hook for long-term care of an individual, which may cost $120,000, $150,000 a year, it adds up pretty quickly, and we don't look as smart as we did in like the 60s and 70s when we cut this deal. Much like Whitman and Walla Walla when they were fighting over the college or the prison, and Walla Walla won and got the prison. It doesn't look the same. You know, it just wasn't as good a deal, you know, over time, and that's kind of what happened with lab. There's always been this debate about whose money it is. Is it the employees' money? Is it the state's money? City's money? And I think there's, you know, some really strong case law that as long as you provide the benefit, you agree, the contract you had with your employees, and that extra money and the public's money or the state, the city. So that's kind of the conversation. But in this case, they use that bonanza, that one-time benefit, to backfill the money that they took out of the budget stabilization account. So all of these things are kind of coming to like, this is a really unstable financial plan that is predicated on being bailed out in 3 years by a windfall from the millionaires tax.
Okay.
Right? So in the short term, for the 2 years, it's all balanced on this one-time money. Money from left, it's money from the capital budget, it's money from the rainy day. And their plan actually creates this huge hole that then gets, my words, rescued by all this additional revenue. Yeah.
Lengthy.
It's challenging, and then it creates challenges.
Yeah, in Tumwater, we can't hold our breath.
Yeah.
Right? We still gotta balance our budget.
Yeah. So I thought some of it was going to be that the cities would see this all concentrated.
So there was some language around examining using some of this money in the future to offset
right now,
local government. Okay. There's some direction to the treasurer too. And I think one of the things that we've talked about is this overall environment that, you know, the state made changes to the sales tax bill last year. And great. Why does it make sense to tax SOGO and other things, all these community assets? But at the same time, and part of the things they said is, it had only been a quarter, we hadn't like spent it, but like you had already done your budget projections based on it. It was real money to the city.
Yeah.
That then is gone now and might come back in like 3 years. And then when you think about putting something like, you know, like something on the ballot, the fact that the state has done this, and this, it makes it challenging at the local level to access the tools that we do have because of the overall kind of climate around.
I think we have about 5-ish minutes to get through the slides. I can't remember how many slides are on the presentation.
I think we don't apologize, it's a great discussion.
Yeah.
We don't apologize, this is why you're here, because you're a genius.
This is the only slide I was allowed to talk on, so.
Anyway, we're starting to build consequences already from these decisions. You probably saw the news that Moody's is one of the credit rating agencies that, you know, determines what our bond rating looks like. It already changed our outlook from stable to negative. It's not an immediate impact to our interest rates, but it certainly is trouble. If things aren't fixed, we can definitely expect higher interest rates for public. I think the big picture for 27, it's going to be a tough year. We talked about what AWC's priorities were going into session. I could go through all this, but I feel like we want to talk about Tumwater mostly, so I'm going to skip right on ahead. Same with Thurston area. We're just going to go into Tumwater, which we start off with restoring the Habitat Conservation Plan money, the $2 million that disappeared in 2024.
John, you have a question for Katie?
I had a comment that I wanted to make about one of the things that happened this session. And just to show you how quick and responsive government is. About 20 years ago, Sandra Romero was one of the House members of a group of women who wanted to work on this issue of taxing women's hygiene products and possibly talking about how we could somehow set a national direction for including in SNAP, which I don't know if there's such a thing anymore, but in SNAP, hygiene products. And of course, it didn't go anywhere. But the beauty of it is we keep having people who care about all of these things that we've been talking about, and these things that seem small or just issues that affect only a few people that happen to be women's issues. And then later, so it's been at least a decade or a little bit longer that Karen Fraser and I picked it up and wrote a bill for including hygiene products in the SNAP program and in the programs that we thought it might fit to do this. So it has been over 20 years of different lawmakers and people in the community here to keep picking this up and saying, here's an everyday thing that can make a difference in the lives of the people of the state of Washington and of right here in your district. And so I just wanted to say it's been a long, long road, and a lot of these different things have had long roads to get to passage. And I'm sort of thanking, when I saw that, all of the people, women and men, who have worked and said yes to things. So if we lose a little bit of tax money to help the state of Washington, we will adjust. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
And persistence is probably a good word also for talking about this first budget item of the $2 million. We were real optimistic all throughout session we would be able to restore that $2 million. At the end of the day, it wasn't in the budget. I'm heartbroken about it. We checked in many times with Representative Parsley. She worked really hard on it. She ended up being in a vice chair role on the Capital Budget Committee, just ideally positioned to be able to get this money across the finish line. She felt great about it. We were assured multiple times, and then at the end of the day, there just wasn't money, and that's what we ended up finding out. I tracked her down. I'm like, what happened? Is there anything we could do? What ended up happening? She had some really interesting insight. What she said is, number one, there just wasn't money, and she didn't think that a fraction of it would actually make a dent, so she would have rather funded something else, and that is what she ended up doing with the planned action EIS at $258,000. She's like, I didn't think that would go very far with the HCP. She also said when she's talking to other budget writers, because Thurston County is where the state budget or the state everything is, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of money for state projects ends up in this legislative district, and budget writers have a hard time then seeing that there's a difference between that money and local governments needing the money too. So it's a really big battle to be able to point and say, it's LD 22, Legislative District 22, but also like, that's not the city of Tumwater. That's not the city of Olympia. Those are my locals. And it sounds like she's having a hard time getting heard on that level. That's something that we can certainly help with, educating in the future. We can have conversations, going into this next legislative session if we want to continue, if we want to be persistent and continue pursuing that money, or if we need to kind of figure out where else we might be able to look for that. Fund Action EIS, a little bit of money to get us hopefully started. I do think that going back next year and asking for the rest, we wanted to get $550. I think that is within the realm of possibility if it's still, ongoing at that point. I think that's certainly a possibility. The East Street Connection design phase, there was no opportunity to seek local transportation money at all. I could go into a lot of detail about the transportation budget, but it just wasn't going to be a conducive year for that. So we will continue working and see if we find better opportunities in the future, mindful of time.
So since we're time constrained, I'm going to say, let's go over the priority bills.
Yep.
And then we will take the 2027 information and we'll put together an email and I'll help get that to council.
That sounds great. All right.
How much time do you need for your presentation? We'll give you 15. So you got 10 more minutes.
Oh, thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
I won't bore you to death then. So we had a handful of bills that we were tracking more closely than some of the others. We had mostly success on these things in terms of the ones that we really didn't like didn't pass, and the ones that we hoped would pass kind of moved along or got improved as they went. Vulnerable road users was a tricky one from a city liability perspective. Essentially, it moved a lot of the responsibility for an accident, a pedestrian car accident, onto the car owners, but also in some cases ended up being a city liability if they couldn't track down the car, the driver. So problematic. Tried to get amendments. At the end of the day, it didn't pass. I'm not sure that it will come back next year. I'm not sure that the sponsor necessarily understood all the impacts of the bill, and now probably does. We'll see. Possible. Automated license plate reader bill, the flop camera bill, you probably heard quite a bit about. It did pass. It got some good amendments from a city perspective as it moved along. Keep us posted if you're experiencing your challenges implementing that bill. A lot of cities are implementing right now and making big decisions about which cameras are even worth preserving. So we're gathering feedback for AWC to how this implementation is going. Potentially we'll need to fix some things in the next biennium too. So just keep us posted on that.
Yeah, do you, sorry, Amy,
No, we do not. Does not. Olympia does, but.
no license plate readers
At all.
for parking enforcement? Okay.
Okay, no.
Okay.
Parking.
Okay.
We have parking, but not.
You won't get a parking ticket.
That's great.
Okay, perfect.
Makes it easier.
Yeah.
Makes it easier.
Yeah. 1592, that was a bill from last year that would have, 25, that would have divvied out money for public defense should the state ever fund it. It got wrapped up into the millionaire's tax compromise, and then you know what happened with that public defense funding. It went away. So, good model. I expect to see that language back at some point in the future, hopefully next year, but just not move forward this time.
And there is an active lawsuit from the Counties Association against the state for indigent defense. It had originally been dismissed at the lower court based on standing, and it essentially said, like, you're not a defendant, so you haven't been harmed, so you don't have standing. It was revisited and pulled back. So there now is, an active case in front of the courts questioning the state's level of funding to local government for indigent defense. So more to come on that.
I'm sure that pressure led to the first 5% and the first millionaire's budget or tax proposal. Legal pressure helps.
The speculation on why the Senator Peterson, and this is idle speculation, rampant speculation, was twofold. One was to perhaps encourage the courts to find it legal, and two was then to kind of like buy off this lawsuit or create an amount of funding that was sufficient to like be equivalent to a settlement.
Didn't work.
Didn't work.
Oh, here we are. 1717, a bill again from last year that picked up some steam. It would have helped with some sales tax for affordable housing. It didn't end up progressing. It had like one gasp of life this session, and then it was gone again. 2489 is the camping bill. You probably heard about. It's pretty controversial, allowing camping in any public space unless certain shelter provisions are met in the community. It got kind of worse this year. It was introduced also in 25, but it was kind of worse this year, and it did not make it out of the House. I think it'll probably come back next year. It's one of those things that just probably will keep rearing its head, but the more people know about it, the less they like it. So I'm not thinking it's going to be a huge battle if it does come back next year. Be wrong. We always are vigilant. Step housing, 2266. It's been on the docket for years. Lots of bills, different bills have been tried. This one passed. There were quite a few positive amendments for city implementation, but it did pass. So hopefully that's the last we hear of that for a little while. But again, as you run into implementation challenges, let us know. There may be fixes that we need to pursue.
Yeah, the area that we worked the most on was on the operating agreement side. I think from the conversations we've had, the perspective is a lot of times the operating agreements are what bring the neighborhood to yes. And initial drafts or original drafts really hampered our ability to kind of put together, something that helped create a sense of ownership. And so we kind of worked to get that back. And I think the final draft does reflect that.
cities do have a certain level of, and communities themselves, of influence on affordable housing developments in their areas. 6026 will not impact you yet, but very soon. Cities at 30,000 or more people will need to start allowing residential and commercial zones, residential development in commercial zones. So you can prepare for that. For now, you can keep your commercial zones, and I would definitely recommend beefing those up in preparation for hitting that 30,000 threshold. The big win, public facility districts for aquatic centers. We got that deadline entirely removed, and I'm not even going to say we, that was Paul. He did it. He did it 100%, and here's the proof. Yep, absolutely, he did it. We have very, very happy constituents here.
Yeah.
So
The original draft was only extended it for 2 years.
2 years.
Which keeps the pressure on, but also is
Yeah.
maybe not practicable. So the final draft having,
Yay, moving. Super exciting.
Julie's like, oh my goodness.
Here we go.
No, I was just reflecting on the
Yeah,
fact that you mentioned legislators that don't have local experience, and we're really fortunate in our district to have fantastic legislators with local experience. So Representatives Parsley, Dolio, Senator Bateman especially, and then also the support of Marilyn Strickland. It's really nice to have a good team.
Really great. Yep, partially her voice on the local government committee is really helpful. So you have her voice on capital budget and local government, like it is just a sweet partnership, and she's yours, so it's like ideal. I think those are the highlights. We'll follow up with email on what's coming up for 27. Obviously, we have time to prepare, but also it'll go fast this interim, and it's campaign season, so there are other distractions along the way. The more prepared we are going in, the more success we will have. You should get an email from Department of Commerce for your EIS funding probably by mid-July at the latest. So if you don't see something, please reach out. We can help push that along, get that under contract, and then you can start getting reimbursed for any of the work that you're doing. We should think about things we could do, ways to thank your delegation for their support and continue to build those relationships, especially with Parsley support all this year, but also Bateman had some really good proposals. She reached out for Tumwater's feedback on. She incorporated that feedback. I think really, really good partner. And then just to make sure that Representative Dolio doesn't forget about us too much, because we can get distracted by other loud voices in the area. And yeah, preparing for the 27th session, which we have lots more to talk about there. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's a lot to talk about.
Thank you so much. You did say you had some good news, But Mayor, do you think that we need a briefing to the community, maybe from the finance manager? What does this look like for Tumwater? I almost feel like the snowball, from the federal government is just rolling downhill, and it's about to impact Tumwater. So what does that mean for our budget in the next 4 years? Increased taxes. As a homeowner, I'm just like, my taxes are about to go up. What does that mean for soda taxes or whatever type of taxes? Because I think that's what it's going to come to. It's going to be increased taxes for us here. So what does this look like for Tumwater?
We're already seeing it a little bit where we had to considerably reduce our sales tax projections a little bit. So you're starting to see some of those impacts, and to the extent that continues into the next biennium, that's where it's going to directly impact.
You're sitting right in front of Troy, so I'm like, Troy, could you, as you're preparing all the budget meetings we're having, have that linking state and federal, right? And how you use that to calibrate your range.
Yes, and to kind of prepare, the populace.
We're going to
Cool.
set expectations.
Right.
Manage
Set expectations.
expectations. We learned that from Mayor Pro Tem Paul Hill.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Perfect. Troy, does that make sense?
Is there a document, do you guys have, when you go, a document that shows, I'm sure you do, but the taxes that have been implemented and who they affect, it's like the cities and stuff that he would have, like a list of the things, master list and stuff.
Good question.
Because sometimes people find out they don't find out till they find out. Like when you found out about how website, that interface thing, how it affected our development program, the community development, that until it hit the ground, it hadn't been vetted. You found it, and so I'm wondering if it's been done to the level yet. We don't have to find it, but he has to find it if there's a place that he can look for it. So.
Yeah.
Centralized location.
I suspect MRIC has that data, but we can compile it for you. You know, as you were talking, the other piece that I think that that is not a tax, but I think the general public thinks of it similarly is utility bills. And you know, at the end of session, Puget Sound Energy just quietly snuck in we're going to raise your rates by 30%, and you know, people are looking at utility bills that are equivalent to mortgages, and you know, again, I just think the average Tumwater citizen, and I'm not trying to, you know, like just thinks of that as of a government cost, whether it's a sales tax, property tax, or just my utility bill. I don't know if there's granularity in that, and that's again going to create a lot of pressure on members of the community.
Well, we already heard that last time because we had to raise our rates, and then we also raised tax rate, and that's the first time we did that since the 90s. So yeah, we're feeling that already.
This is already planned out for 10 years. I mean, like all our utility rates are already, we already know it.
Not to make a profit,
It's not like
be able to pay for our projects.
Yeah.
But when we do it, then it feels like it's.
Yeah.
Then you combine it with TSC doing theirs, so then.
Yeah.
Next is natural gas.
This is all contextual information that we can put in the beginning of the budget narrative to set the tone and make sure that.
Communication plan. Right. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
A lot of money.
Oh, thank you.
Brad, are you gonna stand up and fill the time? I was like, wow. Amazing service. He's gonna stand up.
I would, but council members have to probably have trouble. Okay.
I'm going to encourage you to project so that the folks online can make sure to hear your voice.
And also, if you could sing it.
So, next slide. So this is a housekeeping ordinance. We do this on an annual basis when we can. The intent is really to cover small changes to the code in one place. The request is for the council to conduct a work session to discuss the ordinance. I can answer any questions, and then place this on consideration at your next council meeting on May 5th. Next slide, please. So during last year and this year, we've been gathering information for some proposed minor changes to be considered collectively this year. Again, the proposed amendments are intended to make only minor corrections to the development regulations. We have other ordinances that are coming forward that are single topic ordinances that cover some broader changes later this year. Next slide, please. So there are 4 sets of amendments. The first deal with housing and responses to the State Department of Commerce comments. Second set are child care center related amendments. Third is signage, and last is essential public facilities. Next slide, please. So the housing related amendments are dealing with some commerce comments we received in January after we submitted our comprehensive plan and ordinances, updating the development regulations. They wanted to make sure that our development code reflected some very specific state requirements. First of all, ensuring that ADUs are considered as consistent with single family and other uses. They're not by themselves, they're evaluated by the same standards. We needed to be more explicit in how we stated that 2 ADUs are allowed with a principal structure. Yes. Yes, Councilmember Agavi.
So I keep finding an ADUs, but there is no definition. What is ADU? What does that mean?
Accessory dwelling unit.
Okay,
So
where did
it
it,
is,
where within this document did you make that declaration? I see ADU, but I'm flipping through 10 pages of it. I can't find ADUs anyway.
within our zoning code, we have a use that is known as an accessory dwelling unit, which we
Well,
refer
I
to
know.
in the slide.
What I'm saying, do you have a data dictionary of all these terms that you're using? It pays to have them up front so that people like me don't scroll through, going through multiple pages trying to find something that is not there.
Oh, okay. Are you looking for a definition of accessory dwelling unit?
Yes.
Okay. In the ordinance, there is a section under definitions, 1804010, that defines accessory dwelling unit. That definition is derived from the state law.
Oh, nice. Say that's on what. Yeah. Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I apologize. I could try to find it for you.
I find it.
44 through 58.
Yeah, I find
44,
it.
it starts at 44.
Okay.
I find it. Go ahead, please.
And then lastly, the change was to clarify that our zoning and development reviews requirements for ADUs are not more restrictive than for other, for those of the principal units. Next slide, please.
A question on the number, because they picked two.
Yep.
So that's just random. Why two? Why not four? Why?
I cannot answer that question. I would like to, but I can't.
We did chickens, we got to pick how many
It is
chickens
what
we
the
wanted.
state legislature thought was appropriate, so they thought one wasn't enough. And that,
One that made it two.
yeah, and then three was probably too many,
There was some science behind it, but okay.
but not that I'm aware of.
But the city is able, we can go 4, 5, 6, or is it
We can, yeah. we
So,
can go-
so we're not limited, we
minimum
could
amount
do,
of 2?
If we choose to do it, so there's a couple things at play on this. There is the total number of housing units that are allowed on the lot now, which again is a state requirement.
right,
We have to allow at least 2 dwelling units on every residential lot. If they provide a, one of those is affordable, they can provide up to 4 on a single lot. Those in turn can also have accessory dwelling units. So we start to get a lot of lots on what in 2 years ago was a single family lot that may have allowed 1 ADU. Could allow potentially 6 to 8 instead. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend increasing the number of accessory dwelling units.
but they're not, they could do 1, they could do 2, I mean, that's, we have to allow at least that, or they could exceed if they wanted to exceed that. Our code allows them to even do more, I mean, that just what you're saying, that we have the ability to do
It
more.
depends on how, again, accessory dwelling units only 2. But the primaries can go up to 4, provided one of them is affordable. Second set of amendments relate to child care centers. And this is addressing state legislation from last year, saying essentially that child care centers and the conversion of existing buildings for use as child care centers have to be an outright permitted use in all zones except industrial zones, light industrial zones, and open space zones. In the case of, in child care centers, you're defined as a person or agency providing care for 13 or more children during a 24-hour day, so no overnight stays beyond 24 hours, all derived from state law. Next slide, please. Currently, child care centers are conditional use in all our residential zones. They're permitted outright in all of our commercial zones, and they're also permitted as conditional uses in light industrial and airport-related zones. So what this change is to allow child care centers within residential zones to be a permitted outright use rather than a conditional use. Next slide, please. Also, we made some name changes as this has sort of evolved over time from the original state requirements. Multiple different terms have been used, and so we scrubbed the code and made sure that we use the same terms throughout. So that's why the length of the document is the way it is.
So the only thing I had with the whole mini child is like mini horse, mini donkey, and so,
We were stuck either on the mini
Okay.
child or the mini child care or the mini child care center.
So what's a mini?
Under
Child care.
13, so 1 to 12.
but I understand, and I'm not trying to be funny, I was trying to think of what other word you could use, and I get it, but it just seems kind of like, is there a better way to term it? So-
We would, in my suggestion is just to follow what the state law says.
So the
what
state calls it
terminology
mini,
they
yeah.
use.
So they're using mini?
Okay, it's called mini.
Okay.
Yeah, a term of art, I can.
It's a child mini daycare center, okay. The mini.
But I like many children, so we could.
I would want the mini.
Next slide, please.
You're a big adult now, so.
But I don't want to call it out.
Well, too much farther afield. The third amendment is related to signage. There are a couple changes made. First of all, to narrow the type of conditional exemptions to the code. That means the specific things that fall under that. The other one was to clarify where we allow additional square footage for wall and monument signs, specifically for larger uses that are adjacent to I-5. The issue being that currently the number of wall signs and square footage are really not related to the size of the building or the location relative to I-5. And so we're trying to address that through these changes. Next.
So is signage a thing, is this signage our thing, or is that a state thing?
Signage is us. I don't.
Signage was a big deal.
Can we go back to
Yeah.
that slide?
That was a huge deal.
So I remember doing this on planning commission and getting to Terry Kirkpatrick for a couple of years.
Yep.
And that's one of my questions, is I think of a specific example, Mountain View Church, because of the zoning of Mountain View Church, they couldn't have a wayfinding sign painted on the side of their wall as a wayfinding for the freeway, but Toyota could because it was different zoning. And then I keep seeing the 300, 300, 300. Does this update fix that issue? And then I'm also thinking about Costco, the painted sign. Does this update fix those examples?
It fixes the Costco issue and larger retail establishments and multi-thing, but it doesn't fix the church issue.
Because
it's tied to the zoning. Now, if we are looking for some other tweak going forward, and we're willing to consider that as part of.
I would like to add that, because when I look at this, I keep going, where's the reference? Why 300? Are these arbitrary numbers?
No, they're not necessarily arbitrary numbers in the sense that we did some research to arrive at them and some support to arrive at them. I think as we're going through these kinds of things, and also in other ordinances going forward through the year, if you as a council member or the mayor identify particular issues, please email us. We keep an ongoing list, and so when we're putting together work programs and other things for next year, and we have our list of things to add and do, it's part of our process in 18.
I'd like to add this because it still doesn't make sense that a church can't paint on the side of their wall on the freeway to acknowledge that the church or whatever is there because of the zone. It makes zero sense to me. It just makes zero sense. Why? So those are low-hanging fruit of adding logic to those examples. I mean, I was fighting about that when I was on planning commission and council.
Right, and I was fighting against it the entire time, but I think we can go forward.
Yeah, the whole sign ordinance was thorny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were on planning commission, right?
No, but again, I think the broader issue, we're gonna have other things like that. And the important thing for me is we'll have one example. Oh, by the way, in this particular thing, we did this. I don't always keep track and memorize those things over time. So that's why the record and adding it to our list helps.
So when you're saying we're gonna have other things like that, I'm thinking, okay, if we have the church do it, why can't we have the marijuana stand do it? And why can't we have the liquor store do it? Is that what we're thinking?
It's part of a larger discussion. So if we want to explore that,
One's against the law.
then we start to look at what does it mean? What are the implications?
Marijuana is.
Like proximity to a school or children or youth.
It's not against the law. law.
No, I thought you couldn't do it in the city. Like, you can do it in the county for the marijuana one.
We have it proximity to a school.
Yeah.
There's a boundary.
I think it's 1,000 feet.
Yeah, so they can't do.
Like the whole deal with the giant poster, the
Billboard.
giant one that's right there.
We don't allow,
Across from McConey's, that advertises for the
We
one
don't
on
allow,
93rd.
we don't allow new,
That we shouldn't, it's not, we're not really supposed to have that one there, or they do, they get away with it because.
it's a legal non-conforming use. So until the sign itself goes away, or we make an offer to buy it, or some other thing happens,
Yeah.
it's legal for them to continue. We don't allow new ones to be put up.
You and I talked earlier this year about a potential thing to go into that work program that seems like maybe low-hanging fruit that I didn't see in the packet and I don't see here, and I'm wondering if it's still in the hopper,
Mhm.
and it's about food trucks. Is that like still in the hopper for later?
That is probably still in the hopper.
Okay.
And I'm saying, I think it's still in the hopper because we have a couple more similar ordinances coming forward that deal with that.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I will.
Yeah, but adding it to the list for me. I have my notes on it.
Oh, the sign one, can we have like pictures? It's hard to imagine how big these are. And they can be stuck on the, like, if you're at Westgate, like you're coming on they could be stuck on the wall there? That's the kind of signs you're talking about?
Correct. So it's both monument signs, meaning the ones that are separate from the buildings and the ones that are mounted on the buildings.
And anything along the freeway too, those cement walls, they can put advertising signs along those as well. They don't have to go through DOT.
They have to get a sign permit and do all that. But, yeah.
And they have rules on what that can be other than the tribe. So like when you go past Emerald Queen Casino,
Right.
it's all,
Right.
that's because that's tribal land and
Right.
DOT can't.
But we have our laws and DOT.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, there will be areas in the city that aren't under subject to our rules.
Yeah, it'll be good to see photos, like she said, when it comes for.
so that goes to what Kelly has been mentioning in the past about a way to track using technology more for council to be able to input, right? And so minimizing emails, but allowing them to go in to SharePoint or something to do some type of tracking.
Or a website portal like City of Lacey may have.
Something like that to track it, right? Because we have a never ending list. I mean, we just got more things today, and I went, this is amazing. Thank you so much. There could be a way to give you council more autonomy when you're hearing things and you're seeing things, and like, oh, snap, what about that? So that you can go in, right? Not random post-its and notes everywhere and go, hey, Megan, keep that on your list. So, without violating open public meetings.
Oh.
Let's remember our city attorney who's not here. Thank you, Tracy and Lance. Tracy? Oh, thank you. And Peter, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so Brad, I want a simple distinction. Does the state and the city, does the state and any city, pick one, have differences in allowable signage along the R5 corridor?
I think it depends upon the individual cities or counties on what they allow. I believe the state has some overarching highway beautification standards for billboards and other things like that, but I think it ultimately comes down to the local jurisdictions. When you have examples of the So if you're going to Sierra, you get to 5 and Federal Way along the R5, you see a bunch of very high tall neon sign advertising various products. Can we have such signage here within our boundary?
Peter, thank you for that question. I was going to jump in. Kelly Von Holtz noted that, like the Emerald Queen Casino, those signs, that's on tribal land. So that would not be allowed in Tumwater. But if Squaxin or Nisqually or Chehalis about something, then our municipal codes don't apply if their land is in trust.
Okay, so.
Right? So it could be, right? It could.
So this kind that, then there is the auto shop, the two dealership left-hand arm, where that would be east and west of the freeway, they all have similar signs. But if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, so if you're talking about the signage that is on the car dealerships in Fife, that's what
Yes.
the city of Fife has decided is appropriate. But the larger flashing billboards that are mounted, those are under tribal trust along that corridor. So it's a mixture of two things.
Okay. Okay. Does not the tribe own some land within Tumwater? Or do we have some kind of working relationship with them?
There is trust land within the city of
Mhm.
Tumwater bounds, and it is owned by tribal nations.
We have multiple
Mhm.
properties.
Okay, I don't want to hold us up. Go ahead. I'm just thinking out loud.
Great questions, Peter. Appreciate it. Valid, right? So yeah, there are spots in Tumwater. Some are along the freeway and some are not. So yes, thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
The last set of amendments are to our essential public facility regulations. Essential public facilities, again, are those things that everybody needs but nobody wants near them. That could be a jail, university, or some other large facility. There have been changes in the state law about this, adding some additional uses like the opioid treatment facilities. They've also updated some of the naming uses that they have. And also added improvements to high-capacity transportation systems, which we currently don't have in the county, but for example, would be light rail or bus rapid transit. So all those changes are incorporated. Next slide, please. So we have finished the environmental review, policy act review. The determination was issued, no appeal was filed. Notice of intent ended yesterday, so we received no comments back from the state. Planning Commission held a hearing on the 14th and recommended approval of the ordinance. And we're having consideration on the schedule for your meeting on May 5th. Next slide, please. So the request again is that you place this on your consideration calendar for your next meeting with a recommendation to approve.
How does everyone feel? I'm getting a face nod from Eileen. Brandon, feel comfortable going on consideration? Got it? Kelly, Megan, Angela, Joan, Peter, feel comfortable with this going on consideration
Yeah,
next week?
yeah.
Thank you,
For
Sue.
me, yes.
Thank you, Brad. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
Oh,
Okay, thank you, Brad. Mayor, city administrator's report. All I have is just some space for that Sam Hunt recently passed, who was our LD 22 representative in the House and the Senate for decades. So just wanted to make some space that he represented us very, very well. Was a strong supporter. So I just want to make some space and acknowledge that. And Eileen worked for him for a bit. That's all I had. Make it just for that.
Reports, and then we have an exec session.
So we have an executive session next, so I need to see Peter and Joan virtually in the room next door. Council will now meet in executive session to discuss real estate acquisition pursuant to RCW 42.30.110.(1)(b). Council will be in executive session for 30 minutes until 7:40.
We do 30 minutes till 7:45 and give everyone a couple minutes to hit the bathroom on the way.
okay.
Maybe not. Never mind.
Okay, yeah. Okay, 7:45 with a bio break right now. The council is not expected to take further action following the executive session.
She was against it, like, let's do this.
We are going to extend executive session for another 5 minutes until 7:50. Microphones are hot. Now we have to wait 2 minutes. Remember, microphones are hot. Microphones are hot.
Okay, so,
Microphones are hot. We can't start till.
oh,
She's talking about.
I was just talking about this little bug thing. It's for next week, right? For next week?
I was joking, I got this from the Arbor Day Earth Day, temporary tattoos that for all of council to wear.
Next week, okay. Got it.
You don't have to take me to candy. I think Lana said she was gonna put candy in her desk drawer. Is there candy in your desk drawer?
No.
You got some mints?
I gave them the minutes to the equity.
Oh.
I picked them up, so I have them.
You had them? Okay.
I think this drawer has mints in it.
Oh, my drawer does, yeah.
Oh, can you give me some?
My drawer does.
I just learned they have drawers up there.
I told Troy to leave me a note. Yes, note.
That's a little wonder for this.
Still hot. Probably. And it is 7:50. No decisions were made. We are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Peter, Gabby. Thank you, Drunk Kathy.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
I don't have a locker for.
You have to stick them in the same